My name is Chad Charles. I'm here at the Samadhi Center where I've been contributing in various ways to the retreats held here. And today, I'm going to share with you a guided breathwork experience. We're going to take about 20 minutes or so. And before we do, I'd like for you to get set up as best as you can. What I recommend is finding yourself seated on a chair or some other seat, preferably with a backrest, so that you can lean into the support that you have. And so there's less of your autonomic nervous system that is needing to keep you up. I also recommend, if you haven't already, making sure all your devices are off, silent, even taking them off vibrate mode, so you can be free of any distractions. This guided breathwork is going to involve a visualization. And most people find it easiest to follow a visualization with their eyes closed. And so when we begin, or even now if you like, if you're set up, you can close your eyes and keep them closed for the duration of the guided breathwork. If you prefer to have your eyes open, you can't do this wrong. And so you can look at me on the screen or find a single point somewhere in your space that you can focus your gaze onto. In between the words that I'm using to create this image for your mind's eye to follow, I'm also going to be consciously breathing. And when I do that, you'll probably hear that coming through the microphone. And you'll probably hear and notice that when I consciously breathe, I'm doing so in and out through my mouth. That's not because that's how this should be done. It's just the way that I've come to consciously breathe in my own breathwork practice. So you may try breathing in and out through your mouth if you like. And if you wish to breathe in and out through your nose, again, you can't do this wrong. And so once you've settled into your seat and there's nothing more to do to provide comfort for your body, I invite you to close your eyes if that's your choice, or find that spot in your space where you can rest your gaze on. And we begin. At first, there's no instruction as to how to breathe. But as you follow the visualization, you'll find that minute after minute, your breath may change according to not only the image that I'm proposing for you to follow, but also in reference to the mechanics of the respiratory cycle that I'll also be referring to in this guided breathwork. And so by the time we finished, you'll no doubt be breathing differently than you are now. Not because how you're breathing now is wrong, or how we'll be breathing later is right, but because you have followed this imagery and allowed your breathing to sink into what's being imparted and transmitted to you. And so the image that I'm going to introduce is an object that I think is easy to imagine. It's a tall glass of water. When I imagine approaching an empty glass, with the intention of pouring water in, I can first picture the water pouring into the glass, and as it does, it enters the glass at the top. And even though the water enters the glass via the top, it goes straight to the bottom. And as I continue to pour the water in, I can see that the level of water rises in the glass from the bottom to the top. Now, I can pour water into a glass very quickly. I can also pour water into the glass very slowly. But the only thing that I'm interested in here and now is that the glass is full of water, right to the brim, by the time I've stopped pouring. Now, when I turn my attention to my body, right now I'm seated and my torso is tall and vertical. I like to think of my torso right now as that glass. Only right now, I'm not pouring water in, I'm pouring air. And when the air starts to pour in, it does so from the top, through my face. And that's when I like to imagine sending the air down to the bottom of my torso. I imagine the bottom of my torso being my pelvis, or even my pelvic floor. And as I continue to bring the air in on my in-breath, it's as if the level of air rises in my torso from the bottom to the top. Just like that glass. And I can breathe in very quickly. I could also choose to breathe in very slowly. And the only thing I'm interested in here and now is that my lungs are full by the time I've stopped inhaling. And so each in-breath is an opportunity to fill this torso from the bottom to the top. I like to imagine my own collarbone being the brim of my own cup. Now I'm going to turn our attention to the out-breath. And at first, I'm going to go back to the same image, but I will use it in a slightly different way. That once I've taken the time to pour the water into the glass and it fills right to the brim, at that moment, without any pause, I imagine that the bottom of the glass just disappears. And when the bottom of the glass disappears, the water falls. And if you've ever seen a waterfall, well, you know that it happens pretty quickly. And so the glass goes from full to empty in a very short period of time. And it's not because the glass is trying to push the water away, but rather because at that moment, the water is free. And so it may be in my body that after I've taken all this time to fill my own vessel with air, without even a pause, I let the air go. And just like the glass, my lungs may go from full to empty in a surprisingly short period of time. And it's not because I'm trying to get rid of the air, but rather because at that moment, I'm setting the air free. And even though my lungs may go from full to empty in just a second or two, I can take all the time I want on the in-breath. And so in this respiratory cycle, as I take my time on the inhale, the time that I allow to accumulate this life force energy, this oxygen into my lungs, may be much longer in duration than the time it takes to release that energy from my lungs. Somehow it is on the in-breath part of the cycle where I is participating. I is required to reach the maximum capacity of what these lungs can hold. And yet, once that part of the cycle is complete, I is no longer required. I needs not apply any effort for the air to leave my body. No contraction, no muscle is needed for the air to leave these lungs. And yet that is what is required in order for these lungs to fill. And so on the inhale, I participates in fulfilling itself. And on the exhale, I surrenders. I releases and relinquishes its control. Only to participate and contribute again once the lungs are empty on the inhale. And so gradually, we'll return to a normal breathing cycle. All that is needed, of course, is simply placing your attention onto something else. Maybe scanning for any sounds in your space or coming from outside of your space. Maybe scanning your body for any particular sensations, such as in the fingers, or the toes, or the face. And eventually, if you haven't already, bringing sight into your field of awareness. Maybe picking up on a pattern on a surface like the wall or the floor. And pretty soon, the breath just returns to doing what it always does for us. Keeping us alive every moment, every day, from when we were born to when we pass on. Thank you for breathing with me.